I never thought I'd learn the truth about my husband's cheating spree through a breaking news alert. One second, I was sipping coffee in our quiet kitchen. The next, my phone lit up. Eldridge University, rocked by tutoring for grades scandal. Multiple professors implicated. My stomach dropped. Eldridge was where my husband, Dr. Alexander Hale, had built his kingdom. Beloved literature professor. Tenured. Quoted Shakespeare at our wedding. Parents begged to get their kids into his classes. From the outside, he was untouchable. Inside our home, he was the man who came back late, smelling of old books and coffee. Or so I thought. The article was blunt. Hidden cameras in faculty offices, leaked emails, and students claiming they'd been bribed with special tutoring in exchange for inflated grades. The university was in chaos. Protests erupting on the quad, faculty resignations, students crying on camera. And then I saw it. Sources suggest one of the most beloved professors in the literature department may be at the center of the allegations. Beloved lit Professor, that was Alexander's nickname. My pulse hammered. I texted him. Have you seen the news? This is insane. His reply came instantly. Don't worry, colleagues are overreacting. I'll be home late. Love you. Classic Alexander. Calm, dismissive, patronizing. But that night, when he stumbled in close to midnight, I didn't smell books. I smelled cheap perfume, the kind you only find in dorm rooms. Alex, what's going on? I asked, blocking the hallway. He sighed like I was some undergrad who didn't understand Shakespeare. Nothing, Elena. Petty, jealous colleagues stirring drama. Go to sleep. But I couldn't. The next morning, the scandal exploded wide open. News vans parked outside the university. Reporters camped in our driveway, shoving microphones over the hedges. Campus police raided faculty offices. My phone buzzed nonstop with messages from colleagues, parents, even old friends. Then the email came. Not sent to me directly, forwarded from an anonymous whistleblower tip line, screenshots, dozens of them. Office hours tomorrow? I really need that grade, Professor Hale. Name your price. From a student named Riley, just 21, blonde, sociology major. His reply hit like a blade to the chest. My office, 8 p.m. Wear that skirt from class. I scrolled in disbelief. Hotel receipts hidden as conference travel. Dozens of late-night mentoring sessions followed by overnight grade bumps. The pattern was undeniable. My hands shook as I shoved the phone at him the next evening in our kitchen. The same kitchen where we'd hosted faculty dinners, toasted promotions, celebrated tenure. Explain this. He glanced at the screen, jaw tightening. Then the excuses poured out like he was performing in front of a lecture hall. It was consensual. These girls pursue me, Elena. They're exaggerating because of the climate right now. It's politics, jealous students. I laughed. It was a sound that didn't even feel like mine. Consensual? You failed Riley's paper, then raised it to an A after she tutored you in your office. That's not pursuit. That's predation. For once, he looked shaken, but only for a second. Then he was back in professor mode, pacing, reasoning, even crying on cue. You're my rock. This was a lapse, a midlife crisis. The board will clear me. It'll blow over. It didn't. That same afternoon, the dean called. Alexander was suspended, pending investigation. Students picketed outside our house, chanting his name. Hale's grades. Hale's lies. One of his star pupils went live on social media, her tear-streaked face breaking the internet as she admitted what he had demanded of her in exchange for a recommendation letter. Within days, 3 more women spoke out, then 5. The dominoes crashed down, one after another. Our so-called perfect life unraveled. My kids asked why Daddy wasn't home. I told them it was work trouble. Meanwhile, I was shaking with rage, staring at the man I had trusted for 15 years and realizing he was a stranger. I hired a private investigator, draining $5,000 from our joint account. What came back was worse than anything the news had uncovered. The timeline stretched back years. his first protege while I was pregnant, another while I miscarried our third child, others while I was planning his tenure celebration. Every milestone in my life had a shadow in his. I wasn't his partner, I was his alibi. By then, the reporters weren't just at our driveway. They were chasing me in the grocery store parking lot, demanding statements. And Alexander? He wanted me to smile for the cameras, stand beside him, play the loyal wife who believed in his innocence. But something in me had already snapped. The rain came down heavy the Friday he showed up unannounced. He reeked of whiskey and desperation. His tie was loose, his eyes wild. "Elena," he begged, dropping to his knees right there in our foyer. "We can spin this. Therapy. A statement about family values. You and me together. We can weather it." I stared down at him, the man I had built my life around, and felt nothing but fire. "You don't want me, Alex. You want a shield, and I'm done covering for you." I handed him the folder. Inside, the PI's report, printed emails, screenshots, and a hand-scribbled timeline marked in red ink. "This is who you are, and I'm going to make sure the world knows it." The folder wasn't just evidence, it was a weapon. For 15 years I had been his shield, his cover, his excuse. Now it was my turn to use the truth like a blade. The first step was silence. I didn't scream or throw things. I didn't call my mother or text my friends. I let him think I might still play the dutiful wife. While he stumbled out of the house that night, muttering about strategy, I copied every file from the PI's report and forwarded it to the university's Title IX office. Then I printed backups, stored them at my sister's place, and uploaded them to a cloud drive he couldn't touch. If he wanted to bury the truth, he'd have to bury me first. The next morning, he tried to control the story. He called me from a blocked number, his voice oiled with fake calm. "Elena, the university wants to settle this quietly. If you stand beside me at the press conference, they'll reinstate me by fall. This doesn't have to ruin us." Us. That word had become a joke. I didn't answer. Instead, I called a journalist from the local paper. She'd been camped outside for days, chasing scraps of rumor. I gave her the full story, documents, dates, names, even the receipts of hotel stays labeled as conferences. Within 48 hours, her front-page exposé turned my husband's scandal into national news. Alexander's phone started buzzing nonstop. Then it stopped altogether. Sponsors pulled out. Colleagues deleted him from email chains. The university severed ties. And me? I was no longer Professor Hale's wife. I was Elena, the whistleblower. But that wasn't enough. The more I thought about it, the more I realized the real betrayal wasn't just the affairs. It was how he had used me. The years he let me host his colleagues while he snuck off to hotels. The way he let me miscarry alone while he mentored a student. The gaslighting, every lie, every sigh meant to make me feel crazy for questioning him. No. He wasn't going to crawl away and play victim. He was going to burn. So I filed for divorce. My lawyer didn't flinch when I pushed the folder across the desk. "We'll freeze his assets before he drains them. The PI timeline will shred him in court. And if the students sue the university, you can join as a co-plaintiff." That night, he showed up drunk again, pounding on the door. "Elena, think of the kids." I opened the door just enough to let him see my face. Calm, cold. "I am thinking of them. That's why you'll never set foot in this house again." The police arrived minutes later. I had already filed a restraining order. Watching him shoved into the back of a squad car wasn't satisfying. It was clarifying. For once, he couldn't hide behind titles or tenure. He was just another man in cuffs. The scandal kept snowballing. More women came forward. 7, then 10, then nearly a dozen. Some told stories of promises broken. Others of threats whispered in hallways. Their faces flooded social media. Hashtags with his name trended for weeks. And me? I started writing. At first it was therapy. Journal entries scribbled late at night after the kids were asleep. But then women began reaching out. Friends of friends, strangers. Other wives who had married professors, lawyers, doctors. men with polished reputations and rotting secrets. I built a blog called Surviving the Ivory Tower. Within a month, it had thousands of followers. Women emailed me daily, confessions, survival stories, warnings. My inbox became a firestorm of solidarity. Meanwhile, Alexander's empire collapsed. He lost his tenure, his pension, his speaking gigs. No university would touch him. Parents of his former students threatened lawsuits. Riley, the brave girl who first went public, filed against the school for negligence. I signed on too, not for money, but for the record. I wanted the world to know. I wasn't complicit. I was a victim of his double life, and I refused to be silent any longer. In court, his lawyer tried to paint me as a bitter wife. "Isn't it true you only came forward after your marriage collapsed?" I leaned into the microphone. "No, I came forward when I realized the man I thought I loved was destroying lives. Mine, my children's, his students. You can call that bitterness. I call it survival." The judge's gavel came down like thunder. The restraining order was extended. Custody went to me. Alimony froze until the lawsuits ended. He walked out pale, shoulders hunched, no trace of the towering professor who once held lecture halls in his grip. The last I heard, he was crashing on a friend's couch, begging for adjunct scraps at community colleges that wouldn't answer his calls. His voice, once velvet and commanding, was reduced to desperate voicemails no one returned. And me? I rebuilt. The kids are in therapy. I'm too. But the difference is, I no longer feel like a shadow in someone else's story. I quit my part-time counseling gig and turned the blog into a platform. I host online forums, share survivor resources, and let women tell their truths without shame. Each post is a small rebellion against the silence men like Alexander count on. Sometimes people ask me if I regret it. Going public, torching his career, exposing every rotten detail. Here's my answer. I regret nothing. Because scandals don't just expose cheaters, they free the people who lived under their lies. I lost a husband, but I found my voice. And once you've heard it, you can't unhear it. So if you're listening, and this feels like your story, maybe your husband hides behind a title, a career, or a perfect image, remember this. You don't have to be his alibi. You don't have to cover his lies. Burn the shield.